Okay, so for anyone who wants to grow potatoes this year, this is one surefire way to get the maximum harvest you could possibly get out of growing any type of potato. Store-bought potatoes, seed potatoes, any type of potato you can buy at a store. You can force it to produce chits, C-H-I-T-S, which are the little growths you see on your potatoes after they've been in a dark place for a period of time. They're super easy to grow. And here's what I'm going to be doing this year, good Lord willing. So in front of me here I have a 50-gallon fabric pot. Fabric pots offer the best aeration for the root zone. That's why I love using fabric pots. So it helps bolster your root zone for your potatoes. But it's a deep pot. It's 16 inches deep. I'm going to get 2 layers of potatoes in this. What I'm going to do is 8 inches up, I will have a amount of potatoes in there, and it will be covered to the level you see now. And 4 inches, well, about 2 to 4 inches below the surface of this will be my top layer of potatoes. We're going to try to do reds this year, Bakers, and Yukon Golds. Not all in this same pot, in different pots. And the top layer you see here is actually the fertilizer that I use. It's an all-organic top dress dry amendment. Thanks to our folks over at Dr.Earth. All organic, says tomato, vegetable, and herb fertilizer, but it's great for anything. The NPK value on it is 4% nitrogen, 6% phosphorus, and 3% potassium. But if you flip this over to the back, you will see it's loaded with all kinds of good things in it. All of these are what is known as mycorrhiza, and you've got some different funguses in there that actually bolster your root zone, but most of it is mycorrhiza, and it's endomycorrhiza. We'll get into that on a later video on the differences between endo and ectomycorrhiza. And you can see your NPK value over here, and it also has calcium in it. Calcium is absolutely important to the growth of new vegetation, new roots, all of it. But we can get into that in another video as well. It tells you how to use the fertilizer on the back, but once you've used this for a period of time, you kind of get a feel for what you actually need to use and then what the bag says to use. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you the best way to use this fertilizer is 2 tablespoons per 1 gallon of soil. So this is a 50-gallon fabric pot. As you can see, it's probably 4 inches from the top all the way around. Maybe a little bit more in some places, but on average it's 4 inches from the top. So it's not a true 50 gallons of soil. So what I did was I added 4 cups of my Dr.Earth to this soil, and this is reused soil also. Do not be afraid to reuse your soil, folks. You see so many people throw their soil away. Listen, you can dry your soil out and let it aerate some and reuse your soil. It's so easy to reuse soil. So many people just throw it away, and the cost of soil is not cheap. It really isn't. And anyone that's been to your local big box store knows this. I've spent small fortune, in buying soil and nutrients for all of our vegetables and herbs and all the things we use here at home. So hopefully folks get some good information out of this video to help them to be more sustainable and to help feed their families. After we're done with this video, I will mix this dry amendment nutrient into the soil properly and wait for it to warm up enough, and we will be ready to roll, good Lord willing. So with potatoes, there's a few things you might want to know with potatoes. So a couple things is the pH for potatoes. It varies a little bit, which gives people a window of what they can't go below and what they should not go above as far as pH. So your pH should always be between 5.5 and 6.0 when you're growing potatoes. It should never exceed 6.5, and it should never go below 5.0. That's going to allow your root zone to continue taking in nutrients as they need it, to continue to photosynthesize properly and continue to grow. Last year we were just messing around to see how well they would do, and we grew potatoes in a small container that was probably 5 gallons, and we got around, I want to say 120 or 30 potatoes out of that little bin. It's crazy. This year our goal is 500 potatoes out of the 3 different varieties, and hopefully we'll get that. But a few things to know about the potatoes: you can add any organic input to your soil before you plant. You can add compost. You can add dry herb amendments like I'm doing here. You could add manures if you want to. Just be careful on the manures you add, because some manures are heavier in metals. So just be careful and be wary of that. Just double check where they're coming from and make sure they haven't taken in any harmful chemicals or anything that could potentially transfer to the potato or any crop of that matter and harm your family potentially. Make sure your potatoes have at least 2 chits on them before you plant them, and you want to plant those chits facing upward. The chits are the little things I was talking about earlier that form on your potatoes after you've left them in a cool, dark area for a period of time. Those chits are what's going to turn into your tubers, which are going to lead to your potatoes. Now, all of your leafy green growth on top, that is going to allow photosynthesis to occur, and it's going to allow the tubers to become stronger, more disease resistant, and basically produce a healthier and more robust harvest for you. Always remember this: more roots, more fruits. I heard that a long time ago, and I've stuck to it ever since, and it has done me well. Thank the Lord for that. If you do happen to go above 6.5 on your pH in your soil or in your water when you're watering, I always used just hosed water last year, but if you go above 6.5 on your pH, you may start to notice a disease on your tubers, and it's called scab. It's something that will go away. You can get rid of it if you get your pH back in range, which is between 5.0 and 6.0. And guys and gals, I'm here to tell you, 5.0 to 6.0, that's a pretty good range. Like, I would say most of the water in the part of the state that I live in, which is East Tennessee, I would say most of the water comes out to be around 6.9 to 7.1. Now, there are things you can do to lower that pH. I'd be willing to answer any questions on that. It's super simple. I can teach you how to raise your pH or lower your pH from stuff you have in your house probably that will not harm the plant one single bit. If you are growing tomatoes, for instance, tomatoes could thrive in a 6.5 range on your pH, which we plan on growing tomatoes this year also. But if you're just growing potatoes, try to stick with that 5.0 to 6.0 range. Try not to go above 6.5. Now, when you're making your soil up, you can buy store-bought soil. There's a lot of good soils out there. You could grow in cocoa coir if you wanted to. And then your pH ranges are going to go down somewhat. If you're growing in peat moss has a natural pH of around 4.0 to 4.2. So you're going to have to adjust there, and I can help you do that. If you just reach out to me, I could tell you how to do that. No problem. If you're going to be growing one layer of potatoes in any container, you want that container to be somewhere between 12 and 15 inches deep. You could get away with a slightly less height on your container, but for the most part, aim for 12 to 15 inches and you'll do just fine. 10 inches will work also, but you have more success between that 12 and 15 inch mark. You definitely want your potatoes to have full sun. They can handle some shade, but full sun is going to allow for the maximum amount of photosynthesis. And once again, more roots equals more fruits. So try to stay full sun. Now, if you see your plants wilting or, they don't look so hot, no pun intended, in full sun, then check your soil. Check to see how dry they are. Check to see if there's any disease or bugs on your plant that are just eating them up. Look for all the signs above the soil, and on top of the soil, because it could be as simple as they're too hot. Now, I will say this. If your potatoes, when you start growing them and you have some growth come above the soil surface, if your potatoes are in temperatures of 100 degrees or more for multiple days, and you have a lush, growth on top of the soil, your potatoes can actually die from that type of heat. So don't be afraid to put some shade over them or get them into the shade. That shouldn't be an issue. I'm in a 50-gallon fabric pot. It's a little more difficult to move this type of pot around. Thankfully, I have handles. But I'll get my daughter or my wife to help me move it if need be. But usually we do not have a problem with that around here. Oh, they definitely do not tolerate any frost at all. So you definitely want to start your potatoes after the last frost. You can start them inside. You can do whatever. Starting them actually means that you've got the chits on the potatoes. Now you can have, 3 or 4 chits on the potato when you put it in the ground. I recommend only 2. And the reason for that is if you have 2 chits that are going to force sprouts out of the soil and start growing for you, that potato is going to have just the 2 chits to form tubers from, and it's going to focus a lot more energy on 2 chits than it would if you had 4 or 5. So you're going to have healthier, bigger potatoes, in my personal opinion and from trial and error. Let's see here. You definitely do not want to keep your soil saturated before you see growth on top of it. You just want to keep it moist. just moist enough to keep the potatoes going. Do not let it get oversaturated by overwatering. Overwatering is one of the biggest things that kills people's plants each and every year. Have you ever heard the term, you can love something to death? That applies to overwatering, unfortunately. I have loved a lot of plants to death in my lifetime. I grew up on a big farm, and I learned early on, thank the Lord, that you can overwater your plants for sure. And what it causes is it causes anaerobic bacteria to form in the root zone, and then it starts munching away on your roots. And before you know it, your plants are looking pretty rough, and it's too late to fix it because your roots are already like slime, or they're getting to that point. I think for now that will just about cover it. Please reach out if you have any questions or if you have some concerns about this video or anything to do with this video. I will be more than happy to help you get on your way to growing potatoes, to growing tomatoes. We'll have a part 2 to this video, Lord willing, and it will be putting the potatoes in the soil and showing you the full process of that. After I'm done with this video, I will get in here and mix the soil up with the nutrients. Now, when you mix the soil up real quick, you want to make sure you get down in the soil and you raise the soil up and you just mix this thoroughly as you possibly can. Another thing I forgot to mention, I'll throw this out here real quick. You see all those little white spots in my soil? That's either perlite or pumice. Pumice rock creates not only aeration for the root zone, but it also creates a nice little home for all the beneficial bacteria like mycorrhiza, endo, and ecto, and all the beneficial funguses out there to kind of nestle into and have a home. So I highly encourage people to use perlite or pumice. You can use vermiculite as well. I just don't think it works as well as the perlite or the pumice. But to each their own. Once again, please, guys and gals, reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns. I'll be more than happy to help you out with them. Until then, I hope you all have a blessed day. God bless you all. Amen. Later.